Anne Boonchuy, the main character and poster child for Disney's Amphibia. From humble beginnings as a typical middle school girl to saving an entire civilization from certain destruction and even earning her spot as next in line for the position of, God, Anne's been through quite a lot in her life. She's a character I hold very near and dear to my heart. I owe her and Amphibia as a whole an infinite debt, I really do.
You changed my life.
Which is why I'm so thrilled to bring you guys the entire timeline of Anne Boonchuy. Some of you may not be aware, but I did a video last year just like this, but on Stanley Pines from Gravity Falls, which is still my longest video to date. And clearly this video won't be as long, but hopefully you guys don't mind. I don't necessarily need to go over every single little detail to get my points across for Anne. Let's begin with Anne's early life. Anne Savisa Boonchuy was born in 2006 to two Thai parents who immigrated from Bangkok, Thailand to the United States. Once there, her family opened a restaurant called Thai Go, making it their main source of income. She had a bit of a rocky relationship with her parents, mainly her mother, but they still loved each other nonetheless. At some point, either in kindergarten or preschool, Anne would befriend Marcy Wu and become very close with her. Not too long after, Anne, as well as Marcy, would befriend a Sasha Waybright, after she stood up for them against two teenage bullies. From this point on, the three of them would become inseparable, Anne mainly growing closer to Sasha rather than Marcy over time. Although the dynamic between these three became less than healthy to say the least over the years, especially with Anne and Sasha. Fast forward to the day before Anne's 13th birthday, where Anne, Sasha, and Marcy would unleash puppies into the hallway for a K-pop dance party, leading to the three of them getting a talking to from their principal. Although Anne got the more serious combo about what she's going to be doing in the future and how taking the easy path in life isn't always the best choice to make. Anne's 13th birthday was the day everything changed. She and Sasha spent the day together by cutting class and doing as many fun activities outside of school as possible, even going as far as to ditch the home celebration her parents planned. Anne would also learn about the existence of the Calamity Box via a text from Marcy to Sasha. Of course, unknown to both of them, Marcy singled out this box in the first place in hopes of it transporting the three of them to another world so they wouldn't be separated due to Marcy's father getting a new job outside of California. Later that night, the three girls would go to a park together where Anne would open the box, transporting the girls to Amphibia. Now for Anne's adventures in Amphibia throughout Season 1. Almost instantly after Anne arrived in Amphibia, she would meet local Wartwood resident Sprig Planter and quickly befriend him, leading to Anne living with Sprig, his younger sister Polly, and their grandfather Hopediah Planter. But even though they were nice enough to take her in, the rest of the townsfolk weren't super keen on Anne at first due to her being human. However, after several adventures together with both the Planter family and miscellaneous townsfolk like Wally or Mayor Toadstool, Anne would begin to think of Amphibia almost like a second home and the Planters like her adoptive family. The rest of the town even began to see her as one of their own, notably nominating her for Frog of the Year. Granted, these adventures wouldn't come without some hardships, notably on Hop Hop's end when he hid the Calamity Box Anne still had after finding out how dangerous it could be, even though he knew how important learning more about it was to her. And this was even more so after she met Valeriana in the Bizarre Bazaar. During her Frog of the Year celebration, Anne would reunite with Sasha Waybright. Turns out she had been doing her own thing with the toads that govern over Wartwood the whole time. During these reunion events, Anne would finally come to realize how toxic the relationship between she and Sasha is, standing up to her once and for all. The two of them would clash in a sword fight with Anne coming out on top, and the season would end with the two of them going their separate ways for the time being, ending on a pretty rough note at that. Now for Season 2, or what I would like to call the Newtopia Saga. Anne and the Planter gang embark on a treacherous road trip to Newtopia in hopes of learning more about how the Calamity Box can get Anne back home. But not before Anne protects the home from a giant veggie monster. This event being the first time we can clearly see Anne's eyes glow the same blue as one of the box's stones. I put emphasis on clearly because the time before that, it was kind of a blink and you miss it sort of deal. This road trip consisted of many wacky adventures such as unleashing who we would become to know and love as Frobo from an abandoned factory, meet some miniature frogs in Biddyburg, as well as the Amphibia versions of Stan Pines and Sus Ramirez. Once Anne arrived in Newtopia, she would finally be reunited with Marcy after all this time. Though their reunion didn't start off super smooth either. Anne was being super overprotective of Marcy, thinking she hadn't changed since coming to Newtopia, as well as fearing losing her other closest friend. Marcy clearly proved her wrong though. Eventually Anne would give Marcy the rundown about everything that happened since she got to Amphibia, including her fight with Sasha, leading to the two of them vowing how they plan to find her so they can fix everything that happened and finally get back home. Newtopia was quite the jam-packed time, and not only did Anne meet King Andrius, aka the King of Amphibia, for the first time, she grew much closer to Sprig after bonding about parental struggles in particular, and getting more homesick by the minute while Sprig reveals both of his parents are no longer in this world, so they were able to, comfort each other because of that. Then, of course, the big day at the aquarium, where Anne would learn about the temple quest that's required to recharge the box's stones so she can get back home. However, this would mean saying goodbye to the Planters forever, essentially, for the most optimal way to go about the quest. Of course, Anne was sad about it, but she didn't want to be a burden to Marcy's plan. Thankfully, after realizing how close Anne really got to the planners, Marcy figured it wouldn't be the end of the world for Anne to go back with them. The plan wouldn't change a whole lot, and Anne would still get to be with her found family a bit longer. Once Anne and the planners got back to Wartwood, Anne would finally find out about Hop Pop burying the Calamity Box without ever planning to tell Anne about it. This would be a major strain on the relationship between these two characters. Even when Anne technically forgave him after finding out his true reasons for doing it, it wasn't automatically sunshines and rainbows at the end of that episode. The tensions between them would continue to fester once the quest in the first temple began. Even though it was Marcy's temple, a lot of the focus was put on Anne and Hop Pop. Hop Pop desperately trying his hardest to make things right as fast as possible, but Anne argues things like this need time. She can't just magically pretend things never happened, which Hop Pop was able to understand, thankfully. The second temple quest was entirely focused on Anne because it was her gemstone that was being recharged. Here she would reunite with Valeriana and have her patience tested tons of times, Valeriana thinking Anne wasn't even worthy at one point. But Valeriana realized that even though Anne made a lot of mistakes during her journeys throughout Amphibia, she always owned them and learned from them. However, during the recharging process, Anne forced Valeriana to send her back to her friends because she sensed they were in danger, leaving the stone only partially charged rather than completely charged. The third and final temple quest would be where both Anne and Marcy see Sasha again. Obviously, Sasha and Marcy are going to be buddy-buddy off rip, but of course she and Anne still had the unresolved issues. During the climax of the quest where Sasha has to take down the giant stone toad, Anne makes an effort to bury the hatchet, motivating Sasha enough to defeat the beast, resulting in the box being fully recharged again. Little did Anne know that Sasha had a secret plan the entire time to overthrow King Andrius with her Toad Squad. The three girls would return to Wartwood where Anne and Sasha still had issues they needed to work out. Sasha continued to be a control freak while Anne would test her gangster each time. This would be mainly highlighted in the Battle of the Bands episode, where Anne and Marcy worked together for a song while Sasha went off on her own. But after seeing how much fun Anne and Marcy were having on stage, she decided to join them to finish the performance. It felt like Anne and Sasha finally worked things out, but the overthrow government plan was still very much on the table. True Colors, as the name suggests, aka the season 2 finale, would be where all the big reveals occur. Anne would find out about Sasha's true intentions as well as Marcy's and King Andrius's. Sasha's betrayal would be the first thing Anne would have to deal with. Her part in stopping the Toad Rebellion was to prevent Toads from getting into Newtopia as well as fighting Sasha a second time. Granted, Sasha didn't even want to fight seriously this time because she found out Andrius was likely planning something on the side and wanted to warn Anne about it. After Anne defeats Sasha and returns to Newtopia Castle, she learns about Andrius's plans to invade Earth using the Calamity Box as well as Marcy's true intentions with the box from the start. Although it was a lot for Anne to take in, that didn't stop her from trying to defend her friends and home planet from being invaded by this crazed lizard. Once it felt like Anne's group had the upper hand, Andrius did the unthinkable and dropped Sprig to his certain death. Devastated by witnessing this, the overwhelming emotion Anne felt allowed her to unlock her full potential from her Calamity powers, giving her an entirely new look. She clashed with Andrius for a bit in a fit of rage, but couldn't finish him off due to losing all of her energy from her transformation. As a last-ditch effort to get everyone home, Marcy sneakily grabs the Calamity Box, opening a portal to Earth. Anne and the planners are able to get inside, but before Marcy can, Andrius stabs her through the chest. This being the last thing Anne sees in Amphibia before being transported back to Los Angeles, California. Now for the Season 3 events, starting with the Earth Saga. Anne would finally reunite with her real parents. Of course, it would be a big adjustment because not only would the planners also be staying at the Boonchuy home, Anne still had every intention of going back to Amphibia to not only get the planners back to where they belong, but, you know, she wanted to make sure Andrius was taken care of too. Most of Anne's time on Earth was spent trying to make sure the planners were able to blend into Earth life without being found out by the general public, as well as helping her parents realize how much she's grown as a person because of her time on Amphibia. Anne would also come into contact with many other human characters for the first time, some helpful while others not so helpful. At first, Dr. Jan being the first notable one, when Anne met her, she was able to learn a bit more about the Calamity Box origins, specifically how if she finds this Mother of Ohms, how this Mother of Ohms could guide Anne to her destiny. Anne still had to deal with Andrius coming after her as well, even though he didn't technically show up to Earth during this time. He would send robot assassins after her throughout her time on Earth, most notably the Cloakbot, who was quite the determined killer. It took Anne going Calamity in front of her parents for the first time to defeat it once and for all, and that was after it had already been severely damaged. Of course, Anne had many run-ins with one Mr. X and the FBI due to them trying to capture the planners since they're frog people. Then Terry, who although was introduced much later than the other human characters, would serve to be the most important one when it came to getting the planners back home, since she was the assistant to a well-renowned scientist. No portal would have been made without her. As the time came for Anne and the planners to return to Amphibia with the portal being completed, Mr. X's gang would make one last-ditch effort to capture the planners. Although it seemed like he succeeded at first, thanks to Anne and all the friends she made since returning home, they were able to rescue the family and get back to the portal location. Mr. X refused to give in though, leading to Anne resorting to using her Calamity powers so they'd back off. she finally got back to Amphibia, but it didn't look the same at all. Which brings us to the Return to Amphibia / War Prep Saga. Anne and the planners return to Wartwood to find the entire town in shambles, overrun by wildlife that's mind-controlled by Andreas' technology. Luckily, they're saved by Sasha, who's taken a new position as the Grand Commander of the Amphibia Resistance against Andreas' robot army. Anne was, needless to say, surprised seeing Sasha act like this, but she truly changed this time, even offering to hand over her position of Grand Commander to Anne. However, Anne wasn't nearly as good at this job as Sasha was, even urging Sasha to take the position back, but Sasha felt like giving up a position of power for good was one of the best ways she could prove to Anne she'd changed for the better. Though Anne reassured her that just the gesture alone was enough to get Anne to believe her, thus leaving Anne to be second in command of the Resistance, with Sasha being the head honcho again. As their army grew, Anne took it upon herself to finally act on the Mother Ohm message she learned about from Dr. Jan, leading to Anne and Sasha meeting the Mother Ohm, a giant creature who's guarded ancient prophecies for thousands of years. She would educate Anne and Sasha about the prophecy involving the Calamity Box, how 3 heroes would be connected to the stones, i.e. Anne, Sasha, and Marcy, and they had a choice to come together and defeat a great evil or peace out, with their choice determining the fate of Amphibia. From here on out, Anne would go to different areas of Amphibia in an attempt to recruit specific people / groups of people for their resistance. This included Beatrix, Tritonio, and even Apothecary Gary. Some served to be tougher negotiations than others, but they all eventually agreed to help the good guys. The day before the Resistance was going to storm Andreas' castle, Anne was trying to get the frogs, newts, and toads of the army to work together, but they were just at each other's throats the whole time. It wasn't until they realized how much stress they were putting on Anne, they were able to put aside their differences for not only her sake, but for the greater good of Amphibia. The day for the war had finally come. Anne and Sasha were to infiltrate Andreas' castle to rescue Marcy, only to find the Marcy they once knew and loved no longer there, but rather their friend's body possessed by King Andreas' boss, the Core. Now captured with little hope of winning, Anne has to sit idly by while Andreas is able to go through with his Earth invasion. Time for the climax of Anne's story, fellas. Anne is now in the fight of her life to make sure Earth is saved. Thanks to Frobo, she and the rest of her team are able to escape from Andreas' castle. For a bit, it seems like Anne's gang has the upper hand as she helps the planners destroy as many Frobots as possible. That is until Andreas makes a bargain with her. If she defeats him in a one-on-one fight, he'll call off the invasion. Their fight lasts quite a while. Even though Anne is full calamity here, Andreas' robot armor dubbed the Dilophosaurus, I probably butchered that, makes him much more powerful than his base cyborg form. Not even the power of K-pop could completely take him down. It was only after Andreas read the letter from his old friend Leaf that he was able to realize how wrong he'd been all these years, allowing Anne to land the finishing blow on him so she can save Marcy. Anne regroups with Sasha, where she finds Sasha holding an unconscious Marcy. Marcy eventually wakes up apologizing to her friends about everything she's done, which of course both Anne and Sasha forgive her since they're just glad she's safe and back to normal. Anne and her friends then return to Amphibia to let the Resistance know the invasion has officially been thwarted. It's not over yet though. The core helmet that was on Marcy proceeded to fly to the moon, connect to it, and hurtle towards Amphibia. This is where the prophecy finally comes into play. Mother Ohm tells Anne, Sasha, and Marcy about what they need to do, and they're prepared. But not before Mother lets Anne know about a final gambit where, if need be, she can combine the powers of all 3 of her friends at the cost of her life. The 3 girls get their final calamity forms and take on the Moon Core. It seems like their advantage is high until Marcy and Sasha start to lose their powers quicker than Anne, due to the fact that they aren't used to them. This is where Anne decides to combine the stone powers, much to her friends' disagreement. Anne gives her final goodbyes to them and Sprig before blowing up the moon with everything she's got. Sadly, she really did die, fading away into the air. Though it felt like a stroke of luck, Anne woke up in between dimensions meeting the Guardian, aka the creator of the Calamity Box, essentially the Alpha and Omega of the universe, where they not only gave Anne another chance at life, but the opportunity to become God herself in hopes Anne can become an even better person than she is now. Reunited with her friends once again, it's now time to say goodbye to Amphibia's residences forever, due to the box only having enough power for a one-way trip to Earth. After an extremely heartfelt goodbye with the planners, Anne is now home for good. Epilogue time. During Anne's time in high school, she began to fall out of touch with Sasha a little. They were still friendly with one another, but just kind of fell into different friend groups is all. Fast forward to present day, Anne is now 23 years old, working as a herpetologist at the Aquarium of the Pacific. The exhibit she runs is one for frogs, and it's called, you guessed it, Amphibia. The last time we see Anne is her reuniting with the grown-up versions of Sasha and Marcy, where the 3 of them leave the aquarium to enjoy some time together. Anne's journey was definitely something special, and I think the ending to her characters was one of the best possible outcomes the crew could have given her. Truly amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If enough of you enjoyed this video, I'd be glad to do more of these timeline videos in the future. You know, just let me know in the comments and, you know, make sure to support it. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like down below. It helps out a ton. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out. Take care. Bye-bye.